We're live.
Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. There's a bit of a technical issue today with video. I want to get us sharing video. This is the Node.js end user feedback meeting, our second official meeting, and very likely our last meeting for 2017. Thank you for joining us. We have a special guest today. He's going to be sharing a bit of what's going on the Node.js user survey, and part of what we're doing here in eliciting end user feedback is putting in some infrastructure for various parts of the Node.js project to be able to perform outreach to our user base. Michael Dawson and I had a great sit down with Greg Wallace of the Node.js Foundation, the Linux Foundation, this past week while I was at KubeCon, and we came up with some really nice insights. The most notable takeaway from that was through the existing efforts of the Node.js user survey, we have a list of folks that are already opted in and engaged in providing feedback data that, with the help of the foundation team, we're able to go back and do some targeted outreach. So that's a real exciting takeaway. Then we're going to touch on the plan today for the rest of the year and look on into the next year. I expect the majority of our time today to be occupied with sharing around the user survey and feedback from Greg. So Greg, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And can you kick us off with a bit of an overview of what the survey is and how the cadence of it? Just assume that the folks here don't have the context of what is happening with the survey. Thanks.
Yeah, happy to. So, and thanks so much for joining me, Dan, for inviting me to join. I really appreciate it. So, sure. So for the last, we're right now doing our third annual Node user survey. That's kind of, run by the foundation, but very much intended to be, beneficial to the community. So the first one we kicked off in right at the end of 2015, early 2016, and then we did another one at the end of 2016 that rolled into 2017 this year, and then we've got one in the field right now. I forget the number of respondents we got for the very first one, but I think I'm correct in saying it was 700 or so, which is a very good number. I always say last year, this year. So the one that's closed, right? The one that we ran and then have sort of packaged up the results of in a sort of PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to put out like an HTML infographic with some more detailed results soon. That one got 1,400 responses. And then the one that's in field right now, so it's open, you can still respond to it. We're already over 1,500 respondents. So it's obviously, as a percentage of the total number of Node users out there, it's not a large percentage, but it's statistically significant as a sample, meaning that the insights that we can pull from this data set are really, really useful. So as you mentioned, Dan, one of the things that we do in the survey, it's completely anonymous, right? You don't have to tell us the company you work for. You don't have to give us your name, your email address, or anything. But we do say, if you would be willing to be contacted by the foundation as part of, additional research efforts, please provide your email address. And so, we get a significant number of people every time we do the survey who are open to that. And so with this community-driven effort to, really get into, much greater technical detail from end users, right? As I understand, the mission of this working group.
That's correct. Yep.
It's perfect, right? I can put together an email, I can send it out, I can sort of give a top line summary of your efforts and your interest in speaking with these folks, and then have an opt-in click, right, where they can say, yeah, totally, more than happy to help, or hey, I've changed jobs, right? Or hey, I just don't have the time right now, and then they just delete the email. No harm, no foul. So that's one way that I can see the work that we've been doing in the foundation side on this survey, being supportive of the effort that you've got going on here. The other way is, and we spoke about this also last week, is for the surveys that are closed, right? So the one we did in 2016, and then the one we did the beginning of this year. This is still on my to-do list, but I'll more than happy to go in there and scrub out all of the PII information, right? And give you those data sets, because I think you'll find that there's a lot of useful information in there, a lot of insights that you can get just by, running some pivot tables, right? And looking at the responses that people provided. And so, that's something that, the foundation is very aligned with our mission, right? We're here to, help accelerate and support the development of this critical technology, and anything that we can do to make it easier for, all of you in the community to, identify areas that need improvement, is something that we want to do. So, I guess I'll stop there, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has, and talk more about the survey program.
Great. Well, before we move on, I wanted to make sure that I open the floor to those that are here in the session, and those that are connecting through YouTube. Let's see. I don't have the YouTube chat open. If
you can get the link from Zoom pretty easily. If you click live on YouTube, you can copy streaming link. That gets it to you. Here, trying to go. I've put it in the chat, panelist chat.
Got it. All right. So, and things are going to start playing, and it's going to get weird meta. Sorry. Great. Well, thanks, Craig. That's super helpful. Now, we went on to have a discussion about not only how we plug into this, but the benchmarking working group came to the community committee, and then this group, the end user feedback group, volunteered to take and begin building out feedback for benchmarking working groups needs. Greg, we asked for your assistance in in helping us craft the survey, and also have a central place, foundation managed location where the data is being collected, so we can basically set aside the responsibility of handling private data for now, as we're bootstrapping this initiative. Did you have an opportunity to look into that, what that's going to take, and if it's going to be possible for the foundation to set that up for us?
Yeah. So it's totally not a problem at all for me to get the survey into, we use SurveyMonkey, right? And so that's not a problem at all. The part that I guess I'd like direction from you all on is, I just need to know when the survey is final. So I'm not a market research expert, and I'm not even close. And so we've got somebody.
Neither are we.
Exactly. And so the Linux Foundation, more broadly, like multiple projects, but I've spearheaded at the Node Foundation working with somebody who is, and it's all she does, right? Is market research and quantitative market research through surveys. Principally, she does a little bit of qualitative stuff, but almost all of it's quantitative. And so I asked her, I took the survey that you all had crafted off of GitHub. I put it into a Google Doc so that she could sort of more easily add comments and things. And she did, and that was sent to Michael and to you.
Okay.
Michael provided some responses, but most of the questions or comments were not addressed. And I'll say, the single biggest piece of feedback that she provided was every single one of the questions in there, I think almost without exception, maybe there's one, is what's called an open-ended question, right? Which means that you're going to have to, it's going to make your job a lot harder when you analyze the data, right? Because, it's a lot harder to identify trends when it's free text, right? Unless Hadoop, sort of, data scientist and have access to, that kind of unstructured data, sentiment analysis, yada, 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 which I don't. And that's why Polly, the researcher, recommended that wherever possible, right, we do our best to change what are currently open-ended questions into what she calls closed questions. And all that means is you list a series of options to pick from. Now, it's very likely that some percentage of respondents are going to want to respond in a way that isn't provided among the list, that we come up with. And so you always have to have another category, right? But if you know the subject that you're asking about as well as we do, you usually get more than 90%, right? 95, 98% of respondents who find among the options in the multiple choice list that you provide the one that they want, right? Or in some cases, the ones that they want. It doesn't have to be, right? Just because it's closed doesn't mean it has to be single option, right? You can say in the question, choose all that apply. But it just is going to make your job, after you've done the survey and you're analyzing the results, so much easier, right? Instead of having to read effectively, N number of entries times M number of questions, right? So I didn't see that done in the Google Doc, and I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to talk about that, because I'm more than happy to put the thing in as it is now into SurveyMonkey and the link, and we can go to town and we'll help promote it and all that sort of stuff. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that if you get 250, 300, 400
right. I think we're assuming at this point that we're not going to get a lot of feedback, or when the benchmarking working group is like we'll be happy if we get 10, right? I don't think they considered like what happens if we get 1 million, right?
Well,
so this is actually I actually outlined a little bit of these answers, because this is exactly kind of what I was saying a little bit ago about this survey, is that we need to have that kind of close-ended, here are your options, you can fill in other if you need to. So I think we actually do have that already. We'd have to go dig it up, but a lot of those are already there, or shouldn't be hard to extrapolate.
Okay, well, good. That's good. I didn't see it in the GitHub repo that I was referring to, but maybe I was looking in the wrong place.
Yeah, I think it's in the community committee issue around it.
All right. So yeah, that's my only thing. And I'll just say, I mean, Dan, I never cease to be surprised by the level of engagement that the Node community has. I mean, for us to get 1,400 responses on the survey that we did, the most recent one, not the one that's open now, but the most recent one, which Tracy and I will both freely admit was a bear. I mean, it was probably a 25-minute survey, and 1,400 people finished it, right? So, if all you really want is a handful of highly targeted responses, then, I would say let's factor that into our promotional strategy, because putting it out on the Node Foundation or Node.js Twitter handle is going to result in, many, 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 many more than that. Right. So, but let's make sure that we're completely aligned, because I don't want you guys to end up with, a data set after this that isn't, as useful for you all as it could be.
Got it. So yeah, just a couple of bookkeeping things. I didn't receive the follow-up that you thought you shared with me. I'm gonna guess that you sent it to my node source email address and it got buried there.
It's possible, but well, no, it was because it was actually Michael that sent it to you. So would Michael have your email address? Michael Lawson?
Good. Yeah. Oh, I hope they didn't get him. He just disappeared on vacation.
Yeah. Looking. Yeah, he sent it. Well, he only sent it a day ago. So okay. He sent it yesterday to. Oh, he did. He did. Look at that. He sent it to Dan at Node Source. Yeah. So I'll forward it to you right now.
Awesome.
Yep.
So, yeah, my apologies for not following up with that.
No, you can't apologize for not following up on something you didn't get.
And Tierney, since you looked up that sort of bit of history in community committee, that predates this initiative, maybe in the meeting issue, if you could drop in that. We'll get those folded in. The benchmarking working group is excited to get more answers, but we are also excited to get good answers and help make sure that those who come to us in the future, right? So we're learning as we basically begin to provide services to the rest of the community project, and it sounds like we're whether we like it or not going to get a lesson in data gathering and statistics. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. So I do want to give some extra context. It looks like I gave the suggestion on one of the questions, and then from there it was suggested that the benchmarking working group just wanted to do kind of broad text area type questions. So I didn't continue to get those all. But honestly, like looking at the questions, it really shouldn't be hard for us to slap down multiple choice with other, especially since some of them already provide that. Yeah, it shouldn't be a huge undertaking.
Great.
And I do want to give a little bit of backfill on context, because I think it was before you got involved with the user feedback initiative. This was the first kind of thing that Michael brought to the user feedback initiative once it had already been kicked off. So yeah, this is like everyone's kind of first step with this. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're I'm just gonna put it out there. We're probably gonna mess this up a bit in the first pass, and it sounds just using the example of this broader Node.js user survey. Took the first year to kind of work out some of the kinks, and now they're on a good smooth cadence. So we'll try to do our best. We're hoping to get the survey out over the holidays. Having a meaty sort of insight problem like benchmarking. We thought that might be a good opportunity over the holidays. During the downtime over the holiday breaks that many people across the world are having, to sit down and provide some more thoughtful responses to benchmarking. So.
Dan, should Kevin Allen be promoted to a panelist?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Thanks.
One question I did have: I don't actually see an issue for the benchmarking survey in the user feedback repo. Is there an explicit issue for that?
No, it's linked off to, but we decided not to, sort of duplicate that content until.
Okay, so it's the one that already exists in the ComCom.
Right.
Okay, cool. Because I was going to paste the ComCom link into the one in benchmarking, but if it's the source link, that should be good.
Cool. Great. Well, so I'll have a look at the the survey that's teed up, and I'm going to try to wrap that up by the end of next week, so we can get that published and begin gathering some data. Thank you, Greg, for being available and making that happen. Greg, do you when do you turn into a Christmas pumpkin?
I think it's going to be like a slow, gradual thing. So, I mean, I can, it's not that big a survey. So like I can get it into SurveyMonkey, in like an hour or so, once you've got the questions with all of the, appropriate multiple choice options underneath. I may have some questions, like I may like say, hey, is this supposed to be single option, or can people, select multiple? So, stuff like that. And once I get it coded into SurveyMonkey, I'm going to send it as a preview to, I guess, you, Dan, but to whoever else you want to send it to, so that you can actually go through it and be like, yep, this is all functioning the way it's supposed to. Or you can say, oh no, this question was supposed to be required and it's set as not required, or, whatever, stuff like that. We can just catch last minute things. And then once we're satisfied, we'll open it. I'll send you the link, and, and then we may have a little bit of a delay in terms of like sending it out on the Node Twitter handle, but I should be able to make something like that happen. At a minimum, like we can just be monitoring and retweet, your tweets.
Awesome. So Mihai, you had a question. Why don't you go ahead and ask it? That's a good question.
Yeah, hi, Greg. So just one question: why the survey is bilingual?
Why is the Node Foundation survey bilingual?
Yes.
We did that because we wanted to make sure that we received good responses from all of the users in China, and it was really I'm trying to remember what specific piece of feedback we received, but Tracy Hines, who was really like my partner in crime on the survey for the last 2 years, we did it both for the one that's in the field right now and the one that the most recent one that we closed. And we received feedback from the community saying that we would significantly increase our response rates from Node users in China if we offered the questions in Chinese.
Yes, actually, my question, it was mostly based on, I'm pretty sure in China there are a lot of Node.js users, and that's probably the reason, but you guys cannot do it separately, I mean English and Chinese version for the survey, because probably in the future there might be some possibilities, like say, for example, German users, something like that. And
yeah,
you know, as a starting point, it's excellent, and I think it's great. But I don't think in the future it's going to be fun to have something like bilingual or trilingual. So just divide it. Something.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and we talked about this, and it may come down to a limitation of the survey software that we use, because what we don't want to have to do is, because if we do multiple surveys, the way I understand it, right, is with SurveyMonkey, if you do a separate survey in each language, then you have separate data sets, right? So each survey, you've got its own set of data. And so you would have to merge all of that data, right? And I just don't even know, I don't even know how to do that, like, or if it's even possible. And I'm sure that there's like some survey software out there that, like, you basically, a user opens the survey and at the top selects the language, and then there's a single backend data store that all of the responses go to. But SurveyMonkey doesn't offer that. But I agree, it's a good point. And, we tried to be responsive to the community, and nobody from, like Latin America or Europe, or really anywhere, was indicating that the language was a barrier for them. They were all fine, responding to the questions in English. It was the only place where it was really preventing a significant number of people from responding, according to the feedback that we received from the community, was China. So that was kind of how we made the decision, but I hear you loud and clear. It's a very good point.
I'd also like to chime in on that and say, like, English to Chinese, that's probably the biggest barrier in language. And like, I'm actually looking at numbers. I'm working on a project right now. I'm looking at numbers. It looks like China is literally the second biggest market for Node.js. That's not English speaking. So it's really like choosing Chinese as that secondary option is hitting the largest possible target with the largest possible barrier. So just doing that on that kind of first iteration, as the foundation and, gets feedback from the end user feedback initiative and gets help from us, hitting that is a really important thing, because that basically increases the surface area of responses that we can get effectively, and get tap into the Chinese kind of node end user that has historically, for at least anyone I've talked to, been a very underrepresented group in discussions around Node.js and usage. So, I think it's the best possible option at the front, And then from there, I think that can actually be on the end user feedback initiative to go and help the foundation to get that tooling set up, or figure out a way we can get that working properly in a way that we can go enable languages. And another thing, I actually pinged Tracy while we were talking about this. Another thing that is a part of this is getting people to translate it. I know Dan was sharing comments, Twitter comments in response to the survey saying, the survey is way too long. I dropped out at this point because I don't have time to do this. Getting someone to translate the entire survey is extremely non-trivial. So, getting even Tracy said you wanted to do a Spanish translation, but even getting, people to commit to doing that isn't easy. So that's another massive barrier. The foundation didn't translate it themselves. So
right, that's right. We did. That's absolutely true. The community offered that Chinese translation, and it was wonderful example of collaboration, and it was really very, very valuable as for the reasons that you described. Thanks for adding that. That was really good. So great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, thanks, David.
Great. So Diego has a question. So Diego asks about the result data, if we can open this up somewhere to run our own analysis. Thanks, Diego. Yes, absolutely. Greg is going to be providing us the data, and we're going to be posting it here in the user feedback repo. And then I would love your participation in both helping us understand how we capture that data and share that data, and we welcome your feedback on the insights that you're able to draw from it, and the insights that we want to make sure that we share that context back to the Node.js Foundation. So if we're gaining greater insight or additional value out of this, that can be shared and circulated and improve upon the processes for next year.
One thing on that I'd actually like to ask Greg is just, we are a voluntary group of people that can, include someone else at random. I have full confidence that it'll be done correctly, but I'm just curious about what kind of data we need to strip out to make it kind of anonymized, and how we can make sure we're doing that going forward with the other surveys that we're going to be working with you on.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the part that I haven't done yet, right? But it's SurveyMonkey makes it super easy to export the data in a variety of formats, and so what I'm going to do is export the data from the previous two surveys that are closed, right? And as a CSV, right? And then go in and remove the columns where, for example, we say, if you would be open to being contacted by the foundation, please provide your email address. I'll remove that column and delete it, right? There are a few, so stuff like that. And then I'm just gonna go through, sanity check it, look it over, but we don't ask for people's name. I think we ask people to tell us what company they work for, but it's optional. So, depending on how everybody feels, I may or may not remove that column. So basically that's it, right? There's a respondent ID field. I'm going to leave that in there because, it may be the case that, but that's some random number that's assigned to people as they respond to the survey. So doesn't correspond to any information about that individual elsewhere, right? It's completely unique to the survey, but leave it in because, you all might start looking at the data or the benchmark working group might start looking at the data and say, hey, Greg, there's 4 or 5 folks who, in one of the open text fields, offered some interesting thoughts around, benchmarking, and we would love to follow up with them. Can you go back and check and see if they indicated that they would be willing to be contacted by the foundation? And the only way I'll be able to do that is if you're able to tell me, right, the respondent ID. So it's a critically important piece of work that it be done right, because obviously, it would be a big breach of privacy to, mistakenly reveal people's email addresses. But it's not complicated, right? Like, it's a pretty straightforward thing. I just have to, sit down, do it, quality check my work, make sure that you guys are comfortable with what you have. And then, we can publicize it. Going forward, I didn't see anything in the benchmark survey, and I might be missing it, but I don't recall seeing anything that asked for any personally identifiable information. So I don't think we have anything to worry about there, right? I think that data set should be completely clean and completely anonymous. So I think we should be fine.
Great. Yeah, I think my knowledge of the existing survey, and especially the non-open-endedness of those questions, I think lends itself to fewer privacy concerns. When I think about the benchmarking survey and all those open-ended questions, I do think there's potential there for an expanded signature if someone's trying hard to be anonymous. So something for us to consider.
Greg, do you think you could just share, like, when you feel the data is anonymized, do you think you could share these data set with the members of the end user feedback initiative beforehand, just to see if, like, we feel it is anonymized as well? Because, when I was taking the survey last year, I felt like, oh yeah, if someone who knows me is looking at this, like, they will know me answering in this series of answers would probably be me, even though there's 1,400 responses. So, like, I'd just be interested to see, if our take on it would also be anonymized, or, like, if company matters. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of have that definition of, do we think including company matters or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate that offer, and I would welcome that. Maybe what we need to do is remove all open-endeds, right? Mm-hmm. For example, right, which is going to take a little longer, but would, I think maybe be, in addition to removing company name, I'm a little, title is again, like, we can leave the responses to multiple choice title, right? And remove if somebody, because, like, that might be another way, if somebody's got a very unique title that wasn't among the options in the dropdown and they wrote it in as other, right? That they could then become identified. And so, I think I'm really glad that y'all are thinking about this hard, and I think let's look it over and make sure that we're all comfortable with it before we make it public.
Great. Yeah, that sounds good. And I think if we err on, especially in our first pass here, on, the side of caution, we'll be well served. And then, we'll at least have the opportunity to share, maybe in the next iteration, hey, these data fields are potentially going to be published as a part of our transparency efforts, right? So we're managing expectations for our end users on how their data is going to be used, and so we will follow the path of least surprise.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. All right, that's cool.
Excellent. So I'd like to move to the subsequent section. Sorry, I'm with my screen sharing. I can't see the chat. So we have, now that we've gotten our, basics set up, we have begun to do outreach and invite folks to send an email. We're intentionally using email here and not just GitHub, because we're wanting to engage end user companies. Michael Dawson was kind enough to set up an email address. I'll scroll all the way down to the final version of that. It's set up at userfeedback@nodejs.org, and we have a basic sort of outreach template that we've begun to produce. And through that outreach, we're going to have some public-facing meetings where we're going to invite companies and individuals and end users to participate in this forum. We'll publish to YouTube. Hopefully, we'll figure out how to publish our video, and you can see my smiling face. And begin the process of really capturing and creating a bi-directional channel. So surveys are great, but I believe that the reason why we have such an engaged community is because in Node we explicitly establish an expectation that you can participate, you can join, and that your opinion is valued. So in January, we have an initial feedback session, which I will set up. And that feedback is going to be inviting companies who've recently chosen Node.js or are evaluating Node.js, are at the precipice of engaging with Node.js and using the technology, to share amongst those who have decided and those who are trying to decide, I think that'll be a fascinating exploration. Having been around now for 7 years and seeing those choices, I'm expecting some pleasant surprises as that impetus for adopting Node.js evolves and changes. So we have that penciled in for the 12th of January. That will be the first session in the new year and our next meeting. Then in February, we're going to open the public session for enterprise user feedback. So really excited to bring in enterprise members. We have Ahmad Nasri of TELUS who's joining us today, and he's been very much engaged with the enterprise user community. TELUS is a big telco in Canada. So wanted to make sure that those were on everybody's radar. Go back to the top level screen. Now, December 29th, I was ready to cancel this. Tierney, are you going to be offline during that period of time? Could I lean on you?
I think I will be.
Okay.
Give me 1 second here. I mean, I would prefer not to run the meeting if you're not going to be there. Just because
Oh,
I
no,
don't
no,
feel
no.
like I have enough context. Okay.
Absolutely not. So I just need, the technical individual who has the ability to flip on the YouTube stream. I was planning on canceling that, but with the benchmarking working group survey being in flight and our objective to help that have traction over the holidays, I'm thinking that I can probably make the 29th work, and we could flip on the live stream and talk a bit about the progress of the benchmarking working group. But I would need Tierney, yourself, or someone else with the keys to the Zoom account to get that set up.
Yeah, I can probably do that, even if I just turn it on and let you go.
And off we go. Okay, cool. Great. Well, I'll keep that on the calendar then, and hopefully we'll have at least the initial data to get from the benchmarking working group, or if nothing else, just it'll be a moment to promote that and grow awareness, and it'll give me an opportunity to anchor some of the work in preparing for the sessions in January and February. Great. Well, that gets us through our agenda items. I wanted to open the floor to any questions or comments before we leave. Diego, you decided to join us, and you've been enthusiastic about building community. If I remember correctly, in Brazil around Node. Was this meeting helpful to you? Is this going to be something that you're going to be able to leverage to expand awareness in your local community?
Yes, for sure it was. I am already reading about your ideas and the answers. I'm now going to post some new topics that I think that maybe it should be presented on the survey. Great.
Well, looking forward to seeing how we can help and kind of bring the global network and awareness around Node.js and help grow the the community that you have locally and build awareness of the companies across the world that have adopted Node and are using Node today.
Yes, that will be very, very great.
Well, so if there are no further questions or comments, I think we can wrap it up for today. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually would like to bring something up. So what's the effort? Sorry, I'm trying to find it. The enterprise thing. Page is not loading quickly because my internet's being slow. The enterprise group thing that's happening.
Enterprise advisory group.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to request that be serviced directly in the ComCom. It's been serviced in the TSC and the user feedback, suggesting that it will be proposed as a part of the ComCom. It's not really been discussed with the ComCom at all. But it has been discussed with the other parties. So I would like to request that be suggested and brought up to the ComCom, since it's being proposed that it be a part of that. That's just the kind of only request I have around that.
Great. So that effort is sort of in conjunction with the end user feedback, and it's backlogged. Unfortunately, I got deathly ill after KubeCon last week, and so it's backlogged on me just being sick and having the cycles to go set up the initial infrastructure for that. So that's on me. And that is going to report into the ComCom as the rest of the end user feedback initiative, and that's what's happening.
I guess for it to report into the ComCom needs to approve that it reports into the ComCom. So that's just mainly the thing I want to make sure we have is a discussion around that before that's like finalized. Is to let the ComCom know it's going to have something new reporting to it, and have the ComCom agree to having it report to it. That's literally it's been surfaced to the TSC and the end-user feedback itself. So I just want to make sure that discussion is also happening with the group that it's going to report to. That's all I'm trying to ask.
Great. Yeah, and when there's enough sort of information to have a reasonable discussion about it captured, well,
I mean, like even surfacing that meetings are happening, because nobody in the community committee knew that except for myself getting emails that I didn't have time to pay attention to at the time, unfortunately. So yeah, just making sure that the information is surfacing as it's happening to the community would be helpful.
Great. Sounds good. Any other further comments?
Not from me.
Okay, great. Well, we'll get that set up over the next few weeks, and the next sort of touch point for the folks that are engaged in the advisory group is sort of slated for sometime in late January. So that group will not be coming together for a bit of time. So we can expect activity in terms of landing discussion around that in the community committee. In the initial sessions at the beginning of next year, once the calendar sort of stabilizes. Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Looking forward to getting our first big work product with the benchmarking working group out, and we'll look to each one of you to help us promote that and support that insight that we can improve the state of benchmarking in the Node.js project. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks all. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you.